Good morning. I was telling my dad this morning, I was like, Dad, I feel like it's game day. You know, I've been out of baseball for 3 years now, and when you're used to feeling those pressure situations, you're looking for them daily, right? How do I get that pressure situation, whether it's on the golf course or you got a $5 bet with your buddy or you're shooting hoops. So today it certainly feels like game day. It's a privilege to be here. This is a full circle moment for me. I grew up in this church. I grew up playing upper basketball. I grew up sitting on the front row right there watching my mom in choir practice. Where I came to know Jesus was in this church. 22 years ago, I got baptized right there. I was 7 years old. And a lot has changed in 22 years. Went to Florida State, got married. I have a 2-year-old son now. I have one on the way. Pray for me. 2 boys, so it's going to be chaos for a little bit. But the one thing that has not changed is the goodness of God. And in 22 years, I got to experience that goodness time and time again. I think I would be remiss if I didn't start out a little bit about my journey. It happened before I was born. My parents struggled to conceive for many years. Many people in this church right here, some of them are here today, helped pray for my parents to conceive. I was brought about several years in answer to my parents' prayer. I was brought into this world 3 weeks early, fluid in the lungs, NICU. Didn't know how I was going to do, how I was going to make it out, but I was here, right? I'm going to talk a lot about pain today, right? And one of the fascinating things about labor, and I'm going to experience it again April 30th, is the pains of labor, but what comes out of it is beautiful. Life comes out of it. Fast forward a little bit more, the next painful moment that my family experienced was my sister getting diagnosed with cancer, right? Nothing really prepares you as a young person, as a family, for when your 11-year-old sister is getting treatment with chemo. She's in the hospital, right? And you're walking through the ward and you're seeing all the kids. Nothing can prepare you for that. And now fast forward, 15 years later now, what does my sister have because of all that pain? She has something beautiful, a testimony that's impacted so many people. Shortly after that, I started to get pretty good at baseball. And I was playing here at West Orange. Any West Orange graduates in the room? Okay, I got a few. I was getting good. I was getting calls from scouts. It sounds kind of messed up to say, but I had my pick of the litter, right, on top of the world. LSU, Florida State, Florida, Miami, Stanford, wherever I wanted to go, the world was at my fingertips, right? I thought I was the man. It's funny, 2 times in my life I've told someone, I said, I will never do this. I will never do this. And the first time came, I was in 8th grade. We were going to visit my grandparents in Pensacola, and we stopped at Florida State. I was getting good at baseball. And my dad said, let's stop, let's check out the campus. So we checked it out, and it was the day after homecoming, as you can imagine. It was trashed, right? I looked at my dad and I said, I will never go here, right? What did I do? Went to Florida State, right? So God definitely laughed at that. And I get on campus, and I came with a lot of accolades. I was a top recruit. I walk in there, and first day, I'm like, I'm going to be a college freshman All-American, right? Like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to show these guys how it's done. Right, I'm going to go up there, I'm going to pitch well, I'm going to be a weekend starter. Everybody's going to know my name. And the fall went well. I was throwing the ball well. Obviously, all the struggles of being a freshman at a power university like that with a great program. And then came November 25th, 2014, 10 years ago. Just like any other day, but not. It was raining outside, my girlfriend then, wife now, and we were packing up to go home for Thanksgiving. And during the drive, wet roads, I went to go change the lane, and we slid off the road, hydroplaned, hit 2 trees, T-bone, if you could show the picture. This is the picture that a firefighter on the scene took of my car. And so we slid off the road, we hit the trees, I blacked out. The first thing I remember is waking up, calling 911, telling my wife, we got to get you out of the car. I don't know if it's going to catch on fire. You know, you see movies, cars blowing up and things like that. You just never know. So my wife was able to get out through the front windshield. I was trapped in between the center console and the door. And I called 911. I said, look, I can't move my leg. I don't know if it's broken, right? And I was sitting there, and I don't know what came over me, but my wife was out. I was trapped for 45 minutes before they jaws of life me, and something in the spirit just took hold, and I just started worshiping the Lord and praying. And I met the firefighter later who cut me out of the car, and he said when I got there, I thought it was a DOA, dead on arrival. And I thought there's no way someone's alive in that car. And the firefighter heard me singing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord our God Almighty." And he cut me out of the car. It was miserable, so I got to the hospital. 2-hour drive later to Gainesville. It's the only time I've been a Florida fan was at Shands in Gainesville. I had a broken femur. I couldn't see out of my right eye. The next morning I had surgery, and they put a rod down the center of my leg, the center of my femur, a big screw up here to secure it, 2 screws down here. And I think in those moments, right, you're grateful to be alive. You're thanking God, you're praising God. You got a lot of adrenaline going, as you can imagine. My girlfriend, then wife now, was okay. I'm like, all right. And then the next morning, it all kind of set in. And I was throwing a pity party. I remember having a conversation with the Lord it was late that night after I'd had surgery. And I'm just sitting there saying, God, why me? What did I do? What did I do wrong? And I remember he said something very quietly. He said, Andrew, right now I don't need you to ask me why. I need you to ask me what. What do I want you to do with this? I said, okay, God. Doctors come in. You know, we don't know if you're going to pitch again. We don't know if you're going to be as good as you were. We don't know if you're going to throw 95 anymore. We don't know if you're going to be a top recruit. Heck, we don't even know if you'll be good enough to still play at Florida State. I didn't know that they were going to keep me on scholarship, any of that. And the Lord brought me to this passage in John chapter 9. I want to read it, verses 1 through 5. It's a fascinating passage where Jesus is doing his ministry right. He's out healing the sick. He's out freeing the demonized. He's doing miracles, and he comes along, and verse 1 says, as he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus said, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. After saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. Go, he told them, wash in the pool of Siloam. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. And it was in that moment where I was like, you know what, God? You had a divine appointment for me on November 25th, and you were going to use this to bring about something beautiful and something wonderful, and your glory was going to be shown. And I didn't know it at the time, right? Because when you're in the moment, you just don't know. 10 years later, I know. In the moment, I did not. I think the first thing I went home is God wants to use our pain and our suffering to reveal his majesty and his power, to build a testimony, right? I think we're surrounded by all generations. My nephew over there is 10 years old. Shout out Kelso. He's got a game later. He's going to go strike some guys out. And we got older generations here, and everyone's experienced some level of pain and discomfort this side of heaven, right? And so I gave it to God. I said, God, first, thank you that I'm alive. Thank you for your goodness, that I still get to walk the land of the living. But God, I think you're going to do something beautiful. And that's when the journey started. And so we went home, And the thing about a broken femur when they put a rod in it is you start rehab immediately. Second you get back, there's no waiting. They want you to bear weight as quickly as you possibly can. So I got back and we went into rehab the next week, and I go in there, man, and I'm like, my leg is still swollen. It looks like two legs are in one over on my left side, and I get with the lady, and she's like, okay, we got to start getting your mobility back. I'm like, all right, what does that mean? And she told me to lay down, and she starts bending my leg, and we get to like 3 degrees, and my eyes start rolling back. I'm about to fall. She catches me before I fall off the table. I had to learn how to lift my leg again. You remember what learning how to lift your leg is like? I don't. It's probably like 1 when I did that, right? I had to learn how to walk again, how to run again. Had to learn eventually how to throw a baseball again. Thankfully, Florida State didn't give up on me, and I went back the next year, and I got back on the mound, and I threw 9 innings, I think, maybe 11. Wasn't very good. I went from throwing 95 to 88, getting hit all around. It's funny in the movies, you see it like being this perfect ending, right? And you think it's going to happen to you. My first outing back, we were up like 15-0 opening day, and I gave up a 3-run home run. Yeah, it wasn't very fun. So that year I grind. I was trying to get back all the strength that I had lost. I worked really hard. And I pitched the last game in a super regional against the Florida Gators. We lost, unfortunately, Boo Gators. And I remember being really discouraged. And one thing about pain and suffering is, on this side of heaven, we need people who are going to come alongside of us and give us some encouragement, that are going to not only heal our bodies and be partners, but heal our spirits as well. And I remember my sister, she came alongside of me and she said, Andrew, you don't know this now, but I believe next year you're going to pitch in the College World Series, and you're going to look around and you're just going to be amazed at what God has done. I said, okay, Kayla, that sounds great. But I threw 10 innings this year. So we go into next year, and I'm throwing the ball really well, and not only am I throwing 95 again, but I'm throwing harder than I did before I broke my femur. And I had forgot about this promise that my sister had made me. And we won the ACC Championship. We went to Omaha. And so on the third game, we're playing LSU. And I was supposed to start the next day, and my coach goes, hey, if our guy gets in trouble, we're just going to bring you in today. We got to win this game. And so the third inning comes around, and our guy's in trouble. And coach is like, all right, you're up. So you just, 25,000 in the stands. There's like $2 million on TV. You're 20 years old, and boom, down the bullpen. You throw like 5 balls, and then you're in the game, right? It was the only time that I've ever blacked out on the mound. Complete blackout. Through 5 1/3 innings, don't remember a single bit of it. But you know what I remember? I remember leaving that game and looking at the stands and saying, wow, God, look at what you have done. And I want to be sensitive here, because I know how blessed I am. Not everyone gets to experience an earthly victory like that. But I'm going to tell it till the day I die. I feel like it's a duty I have. And I want to read a couple life verses from James chapter 1, which was read earlier. And how many of you know when God's trying to speak to you, he sends a couple witnesses, right? Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because the testing of your faith develops perseverance, and perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete. Romans 5:3-5, not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. God taught me a lot in those years. Years filled with pain, physical pain, right? but also mental pain, spiritual pain, emotional pain. And the reality is that I think as men, we try to run from pain. And I think what God sometimes tells us is, don't run to it, press into it, because I'm here. There's times in our life where the only way that you can learn something is through some pain. That's the only way. It's not going to be revealed in victory, in wins, right, when you're on the top of the mountain, but it will be revealed in pain. And so, embrace the pain. Embrace it. And I want to close with this. It's pretty cool. I actually just found out about this a couple days ago, but it is a letter from Pastor Troy Schmidt to my parents, October 1st, 1995, one day after I was born. My mom had kept it all these years. And it goes like this. The story of Andrew's conception is a jaw-dropping miracle. The odds seemed against both of you, but God laughs at the odds. However, that was just the beginning of the story. And you didn't know that, Troy, but it was. It's the beginning of the story. Chapter 1, so to speak. Now we move on to chapter 2. God protects Andrew after difficulties during birth. I'll tell you what, on November 25th, 2014, he certainly did. One of the greatest truths that we have learned during our trials is this: God uses us as testimonies to his greatness. Instead of trying to avoid hard times, we should welcome them, because God is using us as mouthpieces of his majesty. He entrusts us with glimpses into his power and grace, and he does not expect us to be quiet about it. Think of the opportunities you will have when you get to share with others the miraculous details of Andrew's life. It is a fascinating story, and God is the author. How about that? And I'll close with this. Sometimes God does things in our lives that, like the blind man, for his glory, and other times we put ourselves in situations in our life that come with a lot of pain and heartache because of our own sin and living in a fallen world. And I just feel like today that God, the Redeemer of all things, the one who makes things new, that there are people in this room that need to know that he is going to use your pain if you will let him. And so embrace it. Thanks, guys.